Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Raw Knuckles podcast under the Sick Podcast Network. I have an awesome guest today, a guy who actually fed me lunch one evening at the Boston Garden. And there's a pretty funny story to that, and we're going to get to it. But Jim McKenzie, welcome to the Raw Knuckles podcast, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Raw Knuckles. Hosted by Chris Nilan.
Nilan going ballistic. I love it. He's going to hit his own players. He's a madman. He's a freaking madman. Look at him going to town. That'll be a suspension. That'll be a fine. Bring them all out, Nilan, you freak.
It's going to be sick.
I'm so happy you joined me. It's funny. I love going back to guys that I played against in our era, the beginning, your beginning. You came into the league at a time where you got the opportunity to play in some of the older buildings, especially against original six teams, the Boston Garden, the Forum. For a kid growing up born in Gull Lake, Saskatchewan, who were like your favorite teams growing up? Who did you have this goal of playing the NHL one day? Did you just play hockey for fun as a kid? When did this go through your head? Maybe one day I can get to the NHL.
Well, I wouldn't call it a goal when I was little. It would be more like a dream, right? You grow up as a kid, you play street hockey where you're not on the ice. I mean, it's all about hockey. My father was an RCMP, so I was born in Gull Lake. We were there for a few years, and then RCMP get moved around. We were in Carlisle. And, you have two channels there, French and English, and the English was always Toronto, and they always sucked. Even when Edmonton and Calgary had good teams out west, they never showed them. And the French channel was obviously Montreal and a little bit of the Nordique. And especially when those two teams played, you didn't want to miss it. But I watched Montreal. That was my favorite team. Those were my favorite players. And growing up, like I said, it was more a dream than a goal. As you get in, played midget and junior in Moose Jaw, and you start playing with guys that they go off to camp and come back and tell you about it, the good and the bad and how hard it is and everything goes with it. But then they go away the next year and they don't come back. They go to the American League, or you see them in the NHL and you wonder, maybe will I get that opportunity? So for me, I don't think I was ever good enough where I could say, well, here's my goals and here's what year I'm going to do this and that. It's more of a dream, and if you want it, you got to work for it. And, as you know, for doing our role, it's not just you got to work for it. You got to be willing to be something you might not have been last year or even last month, because this is what they need. They already got the goal scorer. They got the guy running the power play. They got whatever it is they got. But I have a job for you. I got a job for you.
It's funny, so many guys back in our era who might not have got an opportunity to play the game at that level, if there wasn't fighting in the game, got an opportunity to reach the pinnacle of the sport, which I think is pretty damn cool for guys who have limited talent. I had limited talent compared to a lot of the guys I played with, but I had a lot of other things that those guys didn't have. And when you look at the composition of a team, it's such an important part, especially back then, and even today to some extent. But much less. So growing up, playing minor hockey, when do you get to the point where, okay, I'm going to go play junior hockey? What comes from that? And you got to leave home, go play junior Moose Jaw? How far was it from home?
It was only 3 hours. I say only now, living in the U.S., that 3 hours really isn't much of a drive. But when it's wintertime in Saskatchewan, 3 hours is a long time. And when both your parents work and you have a younger brother and sister, 3 hours is a long ways. You don't come home on weekends. You're playing hockey on weekends, and they don't come up to see you very often. They try, but they're working. And I actually left when I was 14. Moose Jaw just got the Warriors junior from Winnipeg, so they started the junior program and they started a midget program. And used to go in and do Bill Hickey Hockey School in Regina, and there was him and a couple other guys knew someone from Moose Jaw, and they said, go try out for the midget team, instead of going back to Carlisle. And my parents were okay with it. and I went off and I made the midget team or whatever. And I do remember, like I said, there's no cell phones. There's nothing like that. You might talk to your parents once a week. And I just remember my mom calling about a month in, and which was strange. That shouldn't happen. And I pick it up. I'm like, hello. And she's all business. She said, we got your report card. I said, okay. She says, we got another one. You're coming home. You're there to play hockey. I don't care if you play hockey. And she hung up the phone. That was it. I'm like, all right, looks like I got to bear down at school here a little bit. But that was probably one of the best things of moving away. Other than the hockey, is you do have to grow up a little bit, and you got to be more mindful of the things that your parents used to watch a lot closer for you.
It's funny because, growing up, me in Boston, like I did, and, hockey was big in Boston, but compared to what it was in Canada, not close. But we had all the other sports, not that you guys didn't, but you guys, in Canada, main focus is hockey. You can skate outdoors. I remember as a real young kid in Boston, there were times, we could go play in a big puddle in a field somewhere. It would freeze up, but we were close to the ocean, so it was warmer. It didn't freeze as much, so we couldn't skate outside. It was always a rink. We had to be in a rink to be able to play. And back then, there wasn't a lot of opportunity that way. There were a few rinks around, and not as much ice. But so you're there, Moose Jaw. I love Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, I've been all around out west. It's funny when you're a player and you get the game sheet, right? When I first come in the league, right? And I would look at the penalty minutes, all that shit, right? And then you'd see the hometowns. I could never identify with them because I've really never been there. And I grew up in a city, big city. But in retirement, I got to, with the alumni stuff, we'd go all around different provinces and play. And all of a sudden I'd see this name. I go, shit, someone's from here. Who's from here that I remember? It was crazy. And, we went all through Alberta, all through Manitoba. It was awesome to be able to finally, because what do you see when you play in the NHL? You see the cities you're in, that's it. You don't see the rest of it. So it was awesome in retirement to get to do that. And I say I love Saskatchewan. I love the names. Climax, Good Soil, Porcupine Plain. I mean, they get the best friggin' names.
Pretty obviously named too, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's awesome. But so, and Moose Jaw, Moose Jaw. And I was quick to understand Moose Jaw was not only a tough town, but always had tough teams. So you're going to a team that had a pretty good reputation for that stuff, no?
Well, that in the whole league, right? There were no soft teams. If you were the soft team, you were in trouble. But I remember even in midget, because those days Prince Albert, they won a couple Memorial Cups, and anytime like Moose Jaw had a road trip up there to Prince Albert, if a guy from the team didn't go, he just got worked by his own teammate. You got the PA flu because they had Dave Manson, they had Ken Baumgartner, they had guys like that in their lineup, and it was like you didn't want to go into that building. It wasn't a fun, I remember, Mike Keane was probably our toughest guy. My first.
Did you play with Keena?
Oh yeah.
He's the best.
Amazing. Absolutely. And Keener was easily our toughest guy. We went into Saskatoon for a game at the end of the year, and it didn't win or lose didn't matter. So the coach, the genius we had, decided to leave him at home. Theron Fleury was on that team. He stayed home. There was 2 or 3 guys he just didn't take. They were our top players. So we go in. I'm 16 or 17. Lyle Odeline, my other team.
Odie.
And Odie didn't take crap from anyone in junior, but he wasn't nearly as tough. He was a more skilled player in junior, if that makes sense, than he was tough.
Yep.
So we were it. And he was like a year older than me. We went into Saskatoon, and they got Chaser, they got Killer Kaminsky, they got Twister, they got Kerry Clark. Oh yeah, like I always joke with a half joke with Chaser. I said, you weren't even a junior team; you were a juvenile work release program. But you'd go into this old building they had, and I just remember we're in the locker room, and they called up some kids from midget to play on the team, and I just thought they were going to faint because we were in there tying our skates, and Odie looks over, he's got that big smile Odie had, and he goes, "What do you think, Mac? Play the skill game tonight?" I don't think we have one, Odie. Let's go get it done. But
I love him.
Stuff like that. you think back now and just laugh about what you did to yourselves in your own mind?
You know, it's funny, and I always say this. I'll never forget my first night standing the runway at the Montreal Forum, waiting to be announced. I had number 30, which, I didn't want because it was a fucking goalie's number. And they gave it, every time they called someone up, Rick Maha, remember Rick Maha?
Yeah.
He got called. I played with him. They put me on his wing in Nova Scotia to protect him because the year before in the playoffs, Maine obliterated him.
Right.
They had a small team. So Montreal said, we got to get bigger. We got to get tougher. I was drafted as a favor. I wasn't, they didn't find me. I was drafted as a favor to Dickie Moore from a coach I had in Boston. His name was Judge Paul King. And he was good friends with Dickie. And he asked Dickie if, could you do me a favor and just draft this kid out of Northeastern? So hence I get drafted in one of the last rounds, one of the last picks of 78 draft. But standing in the runway that night, and Rick got called up like a week before me, and he came back. What number did he have? Number 30. So I get up there, and I'm like, they give me number 30. I was going to be like, well, I want another fucking number. Just take the number and wear it.
Yep.
I always tell this story, but my dad bought it. He bought a number 30 Nilan jersey. He went in the boutique at the Forum, and he said to the guy, can you make me a jersey, Nilan, number 30? And the guy says to my father, he goes, do you think he will be here long enough for you to wear it? My father said, I don't give a shit if he's here for a game or the rest of his career. Just give me the fucking shirt.
Exactly.
So, and it was like weeks later, I was talking. I said, Dad, I'm thinking to change my number. He said, don't change that. Keep that number. He said, God damn it, and make something of it. And I'm like, fuck, it's a goal. He's not. But he convinced me to keep it. I just think he didn't want to spend the money on another shirt. Right? I'm like,
beautiful.
But it was funny. But standing in the runway that night, and I don't think people really ever think of this. Maybe some, the average fan, being in that runway, and then they announce your name, and you come out, and they stand up, they go crazy. Everybody, they don't have a fucking clue what it takes to get to that point. They might think they know, they don't have a clue. And everybody has a different story, but there's a lot of parallels. 14 years old, you went away?
Yep.
Like, who the fuck does that? Now, hockey players do it.
Yeah.
But, I was fortunate. I was home till till I was 20. Because, one, I was playing college hockey.
Yep.
Two, my father wouldn't let me live in at the dorms because he thought I was too wild.
Where'd he get that idea from?
Which I was pissed. So I had to live at home. I could not wait to leave fucking college.
Yeah.
The draft got me out. But so when we think of that, like you leaving home, and yeah, you're only 3 hours away, but still you're not home. You're not connected. You're not there.
Yeah.
You got to grow up quickly. And it's easy to go this way and that way. Uri Slavkovsky, Montreal.
Yep.
16 years old. He lived in his own apartment in Finland by himself. Like
Crazy.
It's really hard to grasp that, but people don't realize what it takes to get there. You, Moose Jaw, you're there. When does the fighting stop for you?
The fighting starts in midget a little. It's not real fighting, right? Because you're wearing full cages. But and for me, it's mostly the way fighting should be. You're just out there playing, and maybe you hit someone and they didn't like it, so they wait till the next shift, take a run at you, and then it just escalates. And in midget, for the most part, it ends up being wrestling more than it does. We don't know what we're doing, and you're in the cage. For me, where it stood out was we had one particular game, and there's pushing, shoving, whatever. I get into with a guy, and I still to this day don't know because it wasn't something I knew how to do or practice, but did drop my gloves and pulled on the guy, and he kind of bent over, and I grabbed him by the back where his helmet met his head. And as he pulled to get away from me and I pulled, his helmet came off. And as he came up, I just smoked him. I gave him one punch, didn't know what I was doing or whatever, ended up cutting my hand, the whole bit. But I was like, holy cow, like I didn't know what I was doing. It was probably the worst thing I could have done, as I learned later, because back then when the junior team wasn't playing, they'd come watch the midget team. And the coach that I ended up playing for in the next year was watching, and that's what he saw. So it didn't matter. At the time I was a defenseman. I was, maybe I wasn't good enough. I don't know, but I was a defenseman. I was one of the leading scorers in the team. I'm a 16-year-old playing with 17-year-olds in a 17-year-old league, all that. But the next year, I'm standing on the end of the bench as a forward, and the only time I go out is when this guy sends me out to fight. And, like I mentioned, Keener, and I just remember, one day kind of whining to myself in the room, like, why? I never got a regular shift. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Why do I'm playing with and against guys that I was better than in midget the previous year. And Keener said, he's not going to ever let you have that chance. I said, why not? And then he told me the story. He says, I was sitting beside him. He saw how you did. And could have been more excited. He thought he had the next, Stu Grimson or whoever the scariest guy in the Western League was. That's what he wanted for you. And I'm like, well, that's great. I don't know how to fight. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like other than that, I'd never done anything. So, so that's when you start to learn that it's something different than just playing hockey, which I love to do, that there's all these different roles and parts to it. And sometimes you get the crappy one. And I do remember, like my dad, my parents would come watch my dad. He was always a guy. He's a big man. Like I
guess.
a big man, and like he was an RCMP. Like I said, he's a police officer, but he always stood this side, never talked, never really bothered. Like, it wasn't banging on it. He never yelled, nothing. He never said a word. He'd drink his coffee, and that was it. And I just remember after the first couple of times, he's like, what are you doing? Like, you're a better hockey player than this. Why don't you just come back and you can play in the Saskatchewan Junior League and, take another step back, but take a step forward kind of thing. And to me, it felt like I don't know, almost felt like quitting. I'm not going to let this guy beat me. I'm going to figure this out. And
good for you.
That was kind of my attitude, and just stuck with it that way. Because like I said, I did love playing and that kind of stuff. So, but that's when it's certainly, okay, this is something different. And then what went along with it over the next year or so and I don't know how, I just partly being big. At the time, probably 6'3" and 180 pounds in junior. I got good at it, where again, I wouldn't call it luck, but luck. Back then we wore visors. So when you fought, they let you square off and you took your helmets off. You didn't fight with the visor on. Yeah. They have to in the NHL. I understand, in the American League. Yeah. Back then, two guys wanted to fight. The linesman stood away. You stood back. You took your helmet and your visor off, and you fought. But those heads are so much harder than the helmet, especially when you're young. So I'd throw one good one maybe and land. If the guy ducked and I hit him on top of the head or something, my hand would swell up. Well, if you had to fight the next game or in the next week, I slowly learned how to fight left-handed. And that would help me, obviously, through junior and into pro, to be able to throw with both hands. When I
oh yeah, I know.
So sometimes you stick with it. Sometimes things work. I guess I certainly can't.
So now that you've been long since retired, and you're able to take a step back as a mature adult, away from the game, playing it, and you look back on that time and that coach, if he wasn't your coach at the time, maybe you never get that opportunity to play in the NHL. But also, think of it this way. You're the dad. It's your son. You see his son getting pigeonholed. Do you feel like you were pigeonholed a little?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. Like I said, it's like, for me, it's not the law. If and I said this in the NHL because I had coaches that were similar, where you might play 5 minutes. And I remember I just never was the type to talk back. That just wasn't how I was. I wasn't raised, you know what I mean? These are the coaches, respect them, do what they say, and do it as best you can kind of thing. But as I got a little bit older, and I remember addressing a couple of my coaches, said, listen, if I'm not your guy, then get rid of it. So, but you're never going to win anything with a fourth line that plays 5 minutes. Go get someone better than me. Go get whoever you think is better than me. But stop playing me 5 minutes and put me in the stands or trade me or whatever. If I'm not good, and like that, my argument wasn't, I hate fighting. I knew I was especially as I got a little older, my second, third year of junior. I mean, holy cow! And then you get into pro, and once you get you understand that you're stronger. And then I did start to grow, and I got bigger, and all those things. It wasn't the fighting. Like, the fighting was just another part of the game, and I knew I was good at it. I still want to play hockey, And that was always, it's almost a logical argument from my standpoint. Is I watched, you had Scotty Bowman. You watch Scotty Bowman. He doesn't win without his fourth line. And if you're not good enough, don't play for Scotty Bowman on his fourth line. That's the way it's supposed to be. The smart coaches, that's why they win so many games and championships. These other coaches that play 2.5, 3 lines never figure it out. Like you just don't. Yeah. You wear your best players out by the end of the year. And when you need that fourth line to play important minutes down the stretch or in the playoffs, they can't because you didn't allow them to when the games were a little bit easier during the regular season kind of thing. So that's where it always, for me, that's where I always stuck is, do you want to win or not? Because you got to have so it wasn't even the fighting part. Though I always, under my breath, I'd probably cuss the guy because he was, if you ever play for a coach, it's a pussy that was never tough or didn't play. And he's the guy sending you out.
Oh, fuck. It's the worst.
I played for tough guys. I played for Paul Holmgren, who never did. I played for Larry Robinson, who never did. Burnsy, who would never, they know your job. They'll put you in the position. They'll let you do your job. If you go a little over the line, they're not going to give you crap for it afterwards. They get the role. They get the
take the good with the bad.
Absolutely. This is how we do it. And this is, why we're here kind of thing. So, yeah.
I like to tell this story. Bob Gainey was GM in Minnesota, and I was retired. And he called me one day. He said, "Hey, I got a question for you." I said, "What?" He said, "Listen, I don't know what to do with Basil McRae." I said, we were in control of the game. We were up 5-2. There was 3 minutes left in the game, and I didn't want to put him on the ice. I didn't want something to happen, and I put him on the ice. I told him before I went out, "Don't fucking fight." And he fought. Bob was pissed. He said, "I don't know what to do with him. He didn't listen, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Bob, don't do anything." I said, the guy fights for his fucking teammates every night, and because he has to settle something, he has to settle something for himself.
Yep.
And you're going to punish him for that? Fuck. You can't. Nope. And he said, he thanked me. He thanked me because he was ready to fucking hammer him. And I'm so glad he called me because, it's just not right. You got to, I was so blessed to be drafted by this organization. I always say that. I feel indebted to them for what they did for me because they really, listen, I had limited talent, but I had coaches that in an organization that wanted me to be more than just a fighter. And I say that, Claude Worrell, incredible what he did for me in my young career. And then Jacques Lemaire, taking it to another level was insane. Lemaire, no, I always, and I promised myself this. I said, if a coach ever tells me to go fight, he comes and says, "Go fight this guy," I'm going to tell him to go fuck himself. And I promised myself I'd do that. And that's what was my undoing here in Montreal eventually.
Yeah.
And I'm and I'm okay with it. It almost broke me, and I was never quite the same when I left here. But the one thing that saved me from breaking was that I stayed true to myself. I've always been true to my teammates, my team. But boy, there came a time when I had to really stay true to myself, and that was it. The fighting, shit, I forgot where we were now. I got all spun up. So Moose Jaw, then you get to the pros. Yeah. So you watch that happen to your son. Do you step in?
I think what I always loved about my parents is they're great at putting information in front of you. If there's something really bad, then they're going to hit you over the head and drag you out of it. But
yeah,
in a case like this, like my dad didn't say, "This is what you need to do." It's up to you, but this is what you can do. And like I said, I had nothing against this.
That's awesome.
Or the path or whatever, but my dad, you don't have to do this. You're a better hockey player than this. You've shown it. And I'm like, no, I'll figure this out. I'll get through it. And, but that's way, my family's so great. Always been so supportive. You talk about moving away when you're 14 or 15. That first year when I was 14, we had to pay. The team didn't pay for billeting. So now that's an additional, financial thing on my family. And I got a younger brother, sister. I get, the weekends they do want to come see me, or when they do, that takes away from their time and everything else. So the sacrifices your family makes to let you do this, are huge. But no, my parents have always been great. And like I always said, other than being a hockey player, I always want to be my dad and still do kind of, he's a great role model, and both my parents. So been very, very fortunate that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just lost my mom a couple weeks ago, and
I'm sorry to
I
hear that.
lost my dad back in 2021. But always there for you, there's no question. Discipline. My dad was a Green Beret, right?
Oh,
And
I did not
so
know that.
yeah, so this discipline was at a premium in my household, and I happened to
Oh,
be I was the wayward son.
I can't imagine what it's like to be one of the toughest guys in the NHL, but not even the toughest guy in your own house.
Oh no, never. He'd still
That's
smack.
awesome.
I had a wife and 3 kids. He still smacked me in the fucking head. He didn't give a shit. He was like, "Wake up!" But it's funny. My I had my first season. I got sent. I came to camp. I stayed in school. I got drafted 78. I stayed in school one more year. I didn't want to. I wanted to leave. My father, again, steps in and says, "You're not leaving school. You got a scholarship here to go to Northeastern University. You get a degree. You'll be the first kid in our family to get a degree. We can't afford college, blah, blah, blah." So okay, Dad, I'll stay in. I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
So I missed that 78, 79 Cup, the last 4 in a row.
Yep.
If I left school, it's funny, I was still a Bruins fan, even though I was drafted, because I wanted to see the Bruins beat Montreal. They didn't that year. We know Lafleur scoring the goal.
Yeah.
Boom. Too many men in the ice. I was heartbroken for them. But so I come to camp the next. I leave. I stayed in school that year. I said, "I'm leaving, Dad. I'm done with school. I can't." And I leave. And then I get here. I go to camp. Nothing happened. I tried to hit a few guys, and I just felt I felt a little out of place. I'm like, "What the fuck am I doing here all of a sudden?" And then I got sent to Nova Scotia, and we had camp there. I had signed a 5-game tryout contract for $200 a game. I missed the first 4 games in Nova Scotia. The first game I play is in Maine. My family all come up. 2 shifts in, I'm fighting Glenn Cochran.
Oh.
I cut him open bad. We get kicked. He goes nuts. I go nuts. We both get kicked out of the game. My father, what the fuck? We come up here, you get kicked. Like, he just didn't get it, and I'm there. This is what it is, pro hockey, I guess. My first fight. The next day, Bert Templeton grabs me, says, "Come down, I want to talk to you in the room." I thought I was going to get sent down because I got kicked out of the game. That's how naive I was.
Yeah. Yep.
And he said, "Listen, you have an agent?" I said, "No, I don't have a fucking agent." He said, "Well, you better get one because Montreal wants to sign your contract." I signed my first NHL contract a week later. It's crazy. That one fucking fight.
Yep.
So eventually getting to Montreal the end of that season, and talking about the coaching I had was incredible. The coaching I had, and from Claude Rell. Bob Berry was the coach, came in, and Bob was a hard ass, personality-wise, a great guy, but I was sitting on the bench. Fuck, I'm like, and then all the guys would always tell me, "Everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through it." And I'm like, and guys did. I mean, when I came in, I'm at the tail end of guys. There were guys like Rick Mahar was in Nova Scotia for 3 years. He ended up being an incredible NHL player. He never got an opportunity because here in Montreal, there was a log jam. They always overdrafted when it came to the draft because back then you could keep going. My draft year, they drafted 24 players. 2 in the first round, 2 in the second round, and then 22 in the last whatever round. It was insane. If you look at it, Sam Pollock, that's what he did. They kept throwing dots and shit. Yeah. Maybe we'll get some of them.
Yeah,
and
that's smart.
It's crazy.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's funny. I had the same thing. I didn't have a contract with Hartford. I got drafted, and most guys didn't. That was normal back. So you went in, you played a bunch of exhibition games. You didn't know what was going on. If you're going back as a 20-year-old to junior, if you're going to get to play in the American League or anything. The same thing. We played Montreal's farm team. We used to do, Hartford did camp up in Lake Placid. So they sent their team down, and we had a ton of young guys that were pretty tough, and we kicked the crap out of them in the fights. And Lyle Odeline was on the other team, and Odie came up. He said, "Just a heads up, our coaches are ticked. and they're dressing guys from last year. Like they're the big guys are playing because we're going back up there the next night. And so go in there, and back then there's no names in the back of jerseys. All you have is a stat sheet, but that early in the year, there's nothing on it. You don't know who anyone is. And so I'm skating around and warm up. Like I said, I don't know anything from anything. And I look across and I see this guy. He's got to be 6'4", 6'5". He's got a full beard. He's just massive. And I'm thinking, oh, no, that's the guy, right? That's the heavyweight from last year. Figure it out. And you lined up a shift or two in, and I look across. He's playing defense, and he's looking right at me. I'm thinking, oh, no. This is a guy, and here we go. Well, that's going on. The guy lined up beside me is kind of bumping me. He's leaning on me. I kind of give him a whack back. He's leaning on me. And I'm thinking, well, I'll fight this guy. Then I don't have to fight that guy. So we drop the gloves.
Take your pick.
Yeah, drop the gloves. I fight this guy. I do really, really well. After the game, find out the guy I fought was actually the tough guy from last year. I did really well. And the GM's like, yeah, we'll be calling your agent in the morning. And like you said, it was just.
Isn't it crazy?
It made no sense. Now I got a contract. I'm going to play in the American Hockey League instead of going back to play junior one more year. So
that's awesome. And it's funny how it happened then. And here I am. I was so under the radar because I was a college kid, right? Yeah. No one knew. I never fought in the ice. One time in college I got suspended. Yeah. And I punched someone with my glove on.
You would have been a bad surprise for a lot of guys, I bet, because that's all they would have looked at is where do you play? Oh, this will be easy.
Oh, right.
And then you just take them apart.
Well, again, like it's you grow up watching the Bruins. I love Warrior, but I loved O'Reilly. I love Johnny McKenzie. I love Wensink. I'm like these guys. I love the way they played, and they stood up to Philadelphia. It was like, yeah, you want to go? And I grew up watching that shit. Plus, my dad was a role model in a way.
Absolutely.
For my aggressive nature, there's no question. My father just didn't take shit from anybody. If it's wrong, it's fucking wrong, and you're gonna know it from me. And he was that way. I remember my father going on the street. People, he put the garbage out the night before. Kids would come by and kick it, knock it over. He'd fucking go out there and grab them. They can pick every fucking thing up. Like grab that kid by the fucking neck. He didn't give a shit about who. Yep. So I saw that. I'd be a little kid standing there watching. I mean, fucking yeah, Dad. And how does that not rub off on you?
Exactly. And it's not wrong. That's the thing.
No.
It's wrong.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Just I agree.
Today you end up in fucking jail. You do it. You know, it's like, so you go off to Hartford, 89, 90, you end up in bingo, right? And then you played a few games up in Hartford. Yeah. So Hartford's not the biggest city, but you're leaving. It's a big city compared to, I guess, Moose Jaw. No?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything was and I love my experiences in Moose Jaw. I played 1 year out in Victoria. I'm on Vancouver Island in junior.
Victoria is beautiful. I love that place.
Absolutely.
Right?
Everything was a step up, not necessarily even because it was a city, just because of the league, right? You're one step closer to what you're trying to. Now it is a goal. Now when you're playing with and against guys who've been up and down the NHL and guys that are, and that you feel the competitive part of, wait a minute, that guy's a first round pick. Like that guy, guy, you start doing that stuff in your head a little, like, all right, maybe I need to get better at this, or I got to work harder. But, you're saying there's a chance, like there's, so yeah, Hartford was great. It's always funny because the guys that got traded from, LA or Chicago or cities like that, if they didn't have the guys with families loved Hartford because the area is amazing to raise a family. That whole area is just beautiful and it's great that way. But if you're a young single guy and you came from LA or you came from Chicago, you're not exactly excited about the city that, rolls up the streets at midnight or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I was more excited to just have an opportunity to play a game or two in the NHL than anything else.
So it's funny. So your time in Hartford, and this is where we cross paths, you and myself. And are you 6'4"?
When I finally filled out, I'm 6'4.5", and I was about 240 pounds.
Yeah, you're a big man. And I found that out firsthand. But funny, I tell this story to a lot of people. Now, the beginning of my career, I remember coming in. I want to fight everybody. I did. I remember I fought Jonathan at the Forum, and then got out of the box, and then I ended up fighting O'Reilly. And this is when I changed my fighting style. It was early. I knew O'Reilly's a lefty. I said, I'm going to throw my right, and he can throw his left in it. I hit him with one punch. I threw one punch, and boom, boom. And the second one, the blood pouring out of my head. I couldn't see. I remember John D'Amico got in, and I kind of wiped my nose on his shirt. Oh, he got fucking pissed at me. Fucking don't wipe your fucking blood on me, rookie. And I'm like, oh, right. So I'm going to the box, and I sat down, and I'm like, my fucking pride's just crushed.
Yep.
I'm like, and I'm kind of sitting there, and I look over, and O'Reilly goes, points at his left. I'm like, yeah. You fucking idiot, me. So I sat there that night and I said, you know what? I'm not going to have a long career if I continue to fight this way. I got to figure this thing out. I got to be a better technical fighter. I got to not fight the way someone else wants me to fight. I got to take away the other guy's strength. And it really worked for me my whole career. Really did. It saved me a lot of anguish. A lot of pain. And more often than not, if I didn't win a fight, I didn't look like I got beat up too bad. Which is a big thing when you talk about your teammates. And they see you, they always give you credit for showing up. But if you get your fucking ass kicked, the bench goes like that. They're like, oh, a tough guy just got it. He just got it.
It's worse than the fight. That's where the lift is worse than the fight.
Yeah. So I'll never
20 guys.
And I'll never forget. And I know I came in, I said, I'm going to fight all these guys. And they're all older now. They've done all this, but they're still in the game. So you can make a name for yourself. And I said, I'm fucking going to do this. I'm going to go after any guy I can go after and just make a name for myself. And I did. And it got me to stick. Then Knuckles is 34 years old. And I know it was getting tougher on me. And when you start to question yourself, sitting on the bench or in the penalty box, things are not good. Because I knew you can't admit it. I'm getting older. My body's breaking down. This is getting really difficult. So Chicago comes to town. I'm in Boston, and sure enough, fucking the Grim Reaper. He wasn't the Grim Reaper yet. He was just Stu Grimson. And boom, he started running around. I went after him, and away we go. I did okay. I stayed on my feet, but fuck, he hit me with some good punches. And I was always pretty good at tying that hand up. So even when I was getting hit, I could turn my head, and most of it would go off my helmet, but the odd time, punches would get through. So I get through that.
That's a good one.
I get through that one. And then the next night comes to town, the Hartford Whalers. And Bob Sweeney always busts my balls about this. He said, Knox, fucking Big Jimmy, give it to you. I'm there, fuck you. You go get in a fight with him, you fucking, oh. But I'll never forget that night. Because after that, when I sat in the box, and you fucking give it to me pretty good. I stayed on my feet. I said, don't go down, stay on your feet. But you hit me with some really good punches. And I got the penalty box. And that was the point, honest to God. I said to myself, fuck, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'll do it, but I don't know if I can do it and be effective. It was getting so fucking difficult on me. It really was. Mentally, I'll still fucking fight someone now. I don't give a shit. I'll fight someone on the street if I have to see something wrong and someone stole a lady's purse. I'll fucking go after you. I don't care. But at that pro level, the level we were doing it at, it's really hard. And I tell this story often. Jacques Lemaire came to me once after a game. He said, hey, how do you think you played? I said, I was all right. I could be better than that. He said, Chris, be honest with yourself. Players have a hard time to be honest with themselves. I mean, what do you mean? Fuck, I wasn't bad. Come on. He said, really, look at the way you played. I'll sit down with you and show you. You want to see it? I said, yeah. Well, he showed me. And I said, okay, yeah, I suck. He said to me, be honest with your self-assessment of your game. Don't cheat yourself. He said, if you cheat yourself, you're going to continue to cheat yourself. He said, I'm going to let you have one of those games every 10 games. So you can have 8 really shitty games a year. I was like, really? But I was so happy he did it because it gave me something to shoot for. I know if I had a bad game of my own, fucking Knuckles, you got to bounce back next game. You got to do something. If it's not a couple shots on net, you better have fucking 4 or 5 hits in the game. Yeah. You better drop your glove. He's another guy who told me, he said, he came to me one night in New York, you fight too much. You know what? No coach ever told me to fight too much. He said, you fight too much. He said, you got more room than you fucking think you have. Mats Naslund would die for the room you get. People won't slash you. They're not going to slash you like they slash you. I'm like, okay. So that's a fucking coach who cares. Like, he made me feel, I honestly, I love that fucking guy. Like, I just had him on last week, and he is a fucking brilliant hockey guy. Yep. So then we get to us, that fight. And like I said, that night in the box, I'm like, fuck, this is getting tough. And I know people could see it. My teammates could see it. You can't own up to it. You got to keep the bravado up. But it was really getting tough on me. And it's funny. I just, I like before the game, I don't recall what went on. We always had shit would happen. I remember we had that one of the game. I got all these penalty minutes in. Yeah. I had 6 minors, misconduct game. I don't know if you were playing that game. Holik was there still. Were you in that game? You were there, right? That fucking crazy game, the fuck you game.
You went after Robbie Brown and pulled out some of his plugs.
I did.
Yeah, but the funny part about, I told you on the call the other day. So I grew up a huge Montreal Canadiens fan. So anytime when I first turned pro and even a little bit in the minors, once I hit the NHL and I started playing games, we played LA and Larry Robinson's playing. I played against Guy Lafleur, I see Chelios and Ludwig, and I see all these guys. And every time I saw them, it was like I was 10 or 12 years old sitting on the couch in Carlisle, Saskatchewan, watching the Montreal. It was the coolest thing. So we pull up from Hartford. You pull up the old garden. You pulled up in the street. You didn't drive into the building like they do on the new ones. You pulled up on the street. You walk across. You go in a couple of stairs or whatever, and you walk all the way around. And you walk by the Bruins locker room. And I'm walking with 5 or 6 of my teammates. I'm just a young dumb rookie. And I look up, and there's Chris Knuckles Nilan taping a stick. And I'm 12 years old sitting on the couch. I'm like, holy crap, that's Nilan. That's not. I'm just off, and I'm staring, and I know I'm staring, and my little voice said, "Stop staring! I can't stare. I can't stop." And as we walk by, I look at you, and you finally look up. We lock eyes, and you're like, "What the f are you looking?" As loud as you could, and the way you said it, and all my guys snickered. They all giggled. The guys, my teammates I'm walking with, all giggled, and I could feel my face get red. And part of me, I'm like, "Are you gonna cry right now?" And so I put my head down, and we just marched to the locker room. All the guys are in tears when we get there. And like, what are you laughing about? Oh, Nyland, just give it to Mac. You should have heard it. Just give it. Oh, that's rolling around in my big head, and I'm getting more and more angry. I can hardly get the arm up. So that's why I was hardly ever like that. So fired up, I'm like, hurt my feelings.
Oh fuck! So you hurt my fucking head afterwards. And it's funny you say that because I didn't remember doing that, but it sounds like something I do.
But it was nothing. So, that's the thing. You have to understand. Because I had the rabbit ears like all the time. Anytime a coach said something negative or somebody, if it was a teammate or something like that, and they said negative, I'm like, oh, if I get traded, I'm going to get that. Like that was the first thing I went. And it could have been nothing. You could have been making a joke. But early on, I was just so, I guess, sensitive about whatever.
That's funny.
Anything I heard just would set me off and get me all fired up or whatever. But yeah.
What the fuck are you looking at?
What are you looking at? But it wasn't that. it was the guys all giggling. My own
Oh
teammates.
yeah, giving it to you.
That was funny. And by the time we got to the room, they're almost in tears because it was so funny.
Oh.
Hey, what are you laughing about? Oh man, I just kicked back. What?
It's funny. Jay Miller, our fights in Boston, Montreal is crazy. And I go to the Rangers, and then he's in L.A. And we were playing in Cincinnati exhibition game. And I never talked to Jay. I fought him in summer hockey. Because we used to play, and I didn't know who he was. And that kid was fucking tough, I'm saying. But we had a summer hockey team down in Hingham, Mass. So in the off season, I go down there and play. Guys I grew up with, college kids, different people, some pros. And we were the Clovers, and we were one of the better teams in the league, and we shit kicked teams. And Joe Lyons was a scout for the Bruins, and he coached this other team. So he started looking for some tough guys, and he brought Jay in, and Nicky Fatiou. And
it's summertime.
It's summer hockey.
Hey, so much for an off season.
Yep. And fucking Nicky had the referee scared shit. He was going to beat him up. And I end up fighting Jay. And that fucking kid's tough. Anyway, me and Jay never talked. And he's from Massachusetts. I never knew him. I didn't care to know him. And so all the fighting we did, and it's funny, the first fight I had against Jay, he actually said something in the newspaper the next day about me saying, I don't have a problem. I like Chris Nilan. He gave me an opportunity to play in the NHL. And it was funny the way he said it. And we're friends now, Jay and I. And it started that exhibition game in Cincinnati. I'm walking down the hall, and he's out there taping his stick. And I'm like, what the fuck is he taping his stick for? You don't need a stick. Because I had 21 goals. So anyway, he looks up and he sees me. He says, hey, Chris, how you doing? I'm like, hey, what's up, Jay? So I stop and I get talking. He said, you like fishing? I said, I love fishing. He said, why don't next summer we get together, we'll go fishing down Cape Cod. Yeah, I'd love to. Blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden he looks up and he sees Rogie Vachon, the GM. He goes, holy fuck. Rogie see me talking to you. He said, I gotta go. He hates that shit. All right, see you later. Walk down the hall. And I know I'm gonna fight him.
Yeah.
Fucking exhibition. I fucking hate it. It was okay at the beginning of my career, but once you get up there, exhibition season's the worst season you can fucking be in, especially in that era. It's the worst.
Especially against a guy you don't need to fight. Right?
Well, no shit. I get on the ice, fucking they put him right out there against me, and he comes up. He said, Knox, I got to do it. I said, all right, let's go. And away we went. It was hilarious. Yeah. And we did fish the following summer. But so funny. So let me ask you this. 9 teams in 15 seasons.
Yeah.
You had a great career, 880 games, shy of 1,000. That's one mark I wanted to get. I couldn't. I got fucking all beat up. But so how difficult? You married, right? Kids?
Yep. Kids are all grown. Yeah.
How difficult is that? That's another thing people don't get. Picking up and fucking moving and take the family and that. Yeah, they think, oh, you're making the big money, but back then it looked big at times.
You know what? We did a good job is you made it more, you embrace it, if that makes sense. Early on, the first few moves was me trying to figure out the role. Because like I said, played for a guy, if you played for a coach where you go a whole period or close to it without a shift, when you throw me out there, well, I'm not fighting anyone. I'm not even in this game, and couldn't figure out, I got fortunate as the career went on. I played for some better coaches and I adjusted to the role better. And so then it was, you're 2 or 3 years in a place and if it was free agency, you moved on, who cares? It wasn't that big a deal. At the time we had a place back in Rhode Island in the summer and I go back there. Go into, Providence and skate in the summer, everything was easy. So when you took the kids back there and then you went back to wherever you went and started school, they didn't know any different, especially at a young age, right? It's, so kind of looked at it that way. And then I think the way most people looked at it, you know, if you don't like it, quit and go become a police officer like your dad. You could always do that, right? If you don't like hockey, you can go be a Green Beret. Like, your parents set the standard for you that you're not going to sit there and feel bad for you, because it's, you know, I see all the movement with these guys now. They're getting traded, or, you know, things are happening and then they're complaining. I'm just, you know, I kind of get it, but I don't really get it, because it's a game. You're an asset. You're trying to win a hockey game. You're trying to win a cup. You don't have to treat people poorly ever or anything like that. But look at your parents. What do? They're not making millions of dollars a year. Not that we made that, but even back then, they weren't making what I was making.
Not even close. Yeah.
Right. So that's how I always looked. Like, every day I was fortunate. You know, like I said, I got to 880. I was actually on the roster. We're well over 1,000. I was just a healthy. There were lots of nights where we'd go into. I remember with New Jersey, we went in and played Philadelphia. The one night I played like 14 minutes because we had guys hiding under the bench. They didn't want to play. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Played. The next night we go into Pittsburgh. They don't have anyone. So they come up. They call up the next hotshot skill guy from the minors, which made sense. They put him in the lineup because he can't get hurt, because Pittsburgh doesn't have anyone, and I scratch. That's just how the game was, which was fine. But between that and the lockouts, the last year of my contract was the year-long lockout. So just like you, I would have loved to have got to 1,000 and probably could have or should have, depending on how you look at it. But just thankful for the time and like all the guys I met, the stories you have. I feel bad a lot of the time for some of these young guys, because you can't, you know, the Rangers are going through what they're going through right now, right? So they're in St. Louis the other night. It's a horrible game. Both teams suck. Rangers lose. They fly to Nashville. You know, they go out. They didn't go out bad. They went out Sunday night. They don't play till Tuesday, but they're walking along Broadway. A couple of guys, I guess, were in some pub. They're playing darts or something. Well, it's all over social media. Like, everybody knows who they are. And when things are going bad, like, I couldn't imagine. Like, maybe that's what they needed, was go to Broadway, have a few beers, and hey, what are we doing? Like, what's going on with our, like, the way I try to explain to people when I first came in with Hartford. You came in after a game at home and there was beer sitting there on ice. And it wasn't because they wanted you to get drunk and hang. They wanted you to hang out and talk to your teammates. They didn't want you to throw your suit on and disappear and go your own way. They want you to sit there and talk about what was good, what was bad, and get to know that guy that you're sitting beside that supposedly you're going to go in battle with and try to win a cup or try to win. I don't think these kids can even do that. You can't go sit somewhere without somebody taking a picture and put it on social media and all that other stuff right now.
Yeah.
You know, so good for them for making the money, because the other side of it doesn't seem like much fun.
You
There's no way that the stories we have. There's no way.
I get that too, and I tell you, people always ask me, well, what do you think? You know, the money that you make today. I'm so happy hockey players make the money they make today. I don't care what anybody says.
Absolutely.
They deserve it. We've always deserved it. Even back in our day, when you look at our schedule and what we did, we deserved it. But the league hadn't gotten to the point where they could do that yet. We were just part of the building blocks of, like, Rocket Rashad and Ted Lindsay and all of them before us, Bobby Orr. They made Gordie Howe made so much less money than any of us. I remember the old guys coming in the forum, you know, Dickie Moore, Toe Blake, all these guys that blazed the way. And they would come in, and I would sit there sometimes and think, God, these guys made like $10,000 a year, and they were working all summer.
Yep.
And you know, they had part-time gigs and all this stuff, and here I am making $200 a year. It's like, ooh, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But
right. Yep.
It's incredible, and it's a good thing. It's good for the game. I'm happy for the players today. I am. It doesn't necessarily mean I think the game is any better today, but I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
I'm happy for them. You got time?
Absolutely.
Good.
Yep.
You did well. I look at your penalty minutes, 17, 30. You were really a fucking pussy. You know.
Yeah. Relative to you, absolutely. No. I never had a coach come to me and say, "Hey, you're fucking way too much." You can, I couldn't imagine there's many guys out there that ever had a coach.
Right.
The thing was, he was a great coach. It wasn't like it was some average. Yeah. This is a great coach. Hey, you know what? By the way, how would you? 3 years he had 20 goals or around 20. Like, he probably had a point, right?
Yeah, he did.
He did
have a point.
Yeah. Maybe if they ever got to 20, they'd come to me and said that, but I never. Took me 2 or 3 or 4 years to get to 20.
But listen, very important roles at the time, no question. Doesn't matter. You did something I never did, and I was dying to do. You got a hat trick.
I did. Yeah.
I had 2 goals 16 times. I never got a hat trick.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm like, son of a bitch. How cool was that for you, though? Because for me, people always say, they'll say to me, well, it must be to fucking give it to someone.
Yeah.
I'm never, you know what? Scoring a goal to me was the best. And again, it had to be an important goal,
Absolutely.
a tying goal or getting close, getting back in it. But
Yeah.
that to me, it was no better feeling than scoring a goal in the NHL.
Absolutely. And the dumbest thing, this is the dumbest feeling for me at least, was most of the time I'd score a goal and I'd think to myself, why do you just do that more often? Like, that was so cool. Why don't you do that more often, right? And then you go another, whatever, it took you 10 weeks, or for me at least, whatever. But no, we played, I was with Phoenix, playing against LA, and I played with Mike Stapleton, and actually, sadly, Mike Gartner somehow got stuck. Whitey was a better player, should have been playing higher. And Gart certainly was being a Hall of Fame goal scorer. But I played against LA, and the funny part was back then, as you know, if the one team got up a couple goals, the tough guy go find the other tough guy and try to fight, get a momentum. And Matt Johnson was the tough guy for LA, and I'd fought him.
Oh, that poor kid, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd fought him a couple times, and so I get the second goal, and Matty comes and lines up, and he's just matter of fact, sir, you ready to go, kind of thing, and kind of humming and hawing, and he goes, what? I said, and it's early. I go, Mag, like, I got two, like, and he's like, he rolled his eye. He might as well roll his eyes. He goes, all right, go get him, and he let him alone. And sure enough, a shift or two later, I get the third goal, and he lines up. He goes, all right, are we going to go, or are you going to try to get four? Like one of those ones. End up with a hat trick, end up with a fight with against Matt. And, you get together with different guys, and Stu Grimson I've gotten to know really well the last 20 years. And he hates this story because the best part of that story is we played LA about 5 days later in LA, and I was a healthy scratch. So I went from a hat trick, a fight, and first star, and I couldn't get in the lineup a week later or less than a week later, because I think Matt was hurt, so he didn't play. So our genius looked at it, well, keep him out. It was to this day, it's pretty cool just to say, yep, I did that. Any of the boxes you check that you're not supposed to check is pretty cool.
Yeah. So the hat trick, which was more gratification, the first goal or the hat trick?
I think probably the hat trick, only because you play long, you're going to get your first goal, right? If you're, that's eventually going to come. The first goal was funny. So I'm up and down with the Miners and Hartford, and we went on a trip out to Calgary and Edmonton, and I get the first goal against Calgary, and we get smoked like 7-2. They got a good team. That was like a year or two after. This is early 90s. They'd won the Cup in 89. So they got good teams, really good teams. But we get smoked. And Rick Lee was our coach. And I actually liked playing for Rick. He was a type that
old school.
Yeah, but he put you out there. If you blew your coverage, you come off, he would chew your ass, like he would give it to you, but then he put you back on the ice. Don't do it again. He was one of those, for me at least. He was treated like he was great that way for me. But early on, like I said, I got the rabbit ears, right? So we get smoked. I'm still feeling good. I scored a goal, right? I didn't really do my job, but I got a goal. And he comes, he just went up one side, down the other, everybody. But I didn't hear him yell at anyone. I only heard him yell at me, right? Basically, you need to be tougher. You need to, like, whatever it was I should have done, I didn't do. I'm sitting there in my mind going, what are you yelling at me for? I scored a goal. Like, that's how, right? It really bothered me that he yelled. So we're in Calgary. We're going to play in Edmonton. I think it's the next night. I think we bust up there. But from that moment, all through the night, all through the bus, the whole bit, all is rolling around my head is I scored a goal, coach yelled at me. Scored a goal, coach yelled at me. And I'm just getting more and more fired up, getting more down on myself, the whole bit. And we're skating around in warm-up. I'm still rattled. I'm not sure if I'm even playing that night. And back then, certain guys would, you never touched the red line. You didn't go across the red line, right? That was like right? You didn't do that stuff. No. And so I go by, and it's towards the end of warm-up. I'm just kicking a puck in my skates. I don't know why. And this big guy is stretching on our side of the ice. And just as he gets up, I run into him. Not hard, but we bump because he's on our side, and I didn't see him. And they had this little yappy guy. It's either Linsman or Acton. I can never tell which one it was. I always forget.
Probably Acton.
Okay, so he looks at the big guy. He looks at me. He looks back at the big guy, goes, holy crap, Brownie. You believe this rookie's trying to show you up in your own building? What are you going to do? The big guy looks at him, looks at me, points. He goes, you're dead. I'm like, dude, like, you have no idea what's going on in my mind. Like, I don't have time. Right? So go through warm-up. Kelly Buckberger. I played with Bucky and Junior, and now we're almost like slap shot. Me and this big guy, we're like bumping gloves. We're staring at each other every time. Like now we're getting whatever. And Bucky comes over. He goes, Mac, like you have a death wish. Like what are you doing? I'm like, Bucky, are you kidding? I said, scored a goal last night. You probably saw it on the highlights. Coach yelled at me. I mean, that's all I got in my head. I can't get anything out of it. So I go in the locker room, and it's a morgue, and nobody will look at me now. I've been up and down. I haven't had a fight in the NHL yet, and none of these guys, with the exception of Daryl Ray, who's our goalie, backup goalie, nobody's seen me fight. No one in that room has any idea if I could fight or not. They just heard I'm tough. So I go in the locker room, and it's a morgue, and no one will look at me. It's like that movie, I See Dead People. They think I'm dead. I don't know why. I haven't figured it out because I don't know who the big guy is. In my head, I haven't figured that out. So I go through and I'm hitting guys on the shin pad. I'm like, come on, fellas, let's have a better one tonight. Come on, I'm the only one talking and no one will look at me. And back then, they used to dress like an extra forward, extra D for warm up. The coach would come in and say, oh, you're in, you're out, whatever. And so Rick Lee comes in, and I'm thinking for sure I'm going to get healthy scratch because he yelled at me the night before. I might not even go to the minors. I might just go home, become a police officer like my dad. Like, this game sucks. Like, that's how down am I, right? So he comes in, and the other extra guys are all hoping they're not playing, right? Nobody wants to be a part of this team. That's what I did. And he comes in, he points at me, goes, all right, you're in. I'm like, yeah, and the guy's all right, man, what's wrong? So first or second shift, the big guy comes for me, gives me a shot. You think you're tough? We have what turns out to be a really good fight.
Brownie?
So, right, yes. So we go to the box. I'm sitting in the box, and now I'm miserable because I didn't fight it. I bet you I didn't fight 10 times in the minors the previous year, but I fought tough guys, and I did really well. Well, I did. What I don't know is I did well in this fight, but I certainly didn't give it to this guy like I did, right? So now I'm in the box. I'm thinking, all right, I scored a goal, get yelled at. I didn't kick the crap out of this guy. Like, for sure I'm getting sent down. I may never play. Like, now my miserable level's gone off the chart. So the 5 minutes is served. I come out. I take one stride. I look at the bench, and our bench is going crazy. Like, they're all fired up. Now they know they got a tough guy. I don't know it's me. Get back to the bench. Sitting on the bench. I end up down by Razor, by the goalie. And Razor's like, what's your problem? What's your whatever? And before I can get into it, I'm like, McKenzie, let's go. And I jump out there and I see the big guy. So back then, you don't think you did good in your fight, you go right back at him. So I go right over and I give him a shot. I go, let's go. And he's like, gives me a push back. He's like, settle down. And he skates off. Now I'm like, fuck. No, I'm losing my mind. We get into the third period. There's like 10 minutes left. We're down a goal. So I'm done for the night. And I end up at Razor. He goes, what is your problem? He goes, you scored a goal last night. He said, you fought one of the toughest guys in the league. He said, your lip. I go, you're toughest guys in the league. What are you talking about? He goes, you know who you fought? I go, they have some Brown guy. He goes, that's Dave Brown. I'm like, ooh, Dave Brown, Charlie Brown, downtown Brown. I'm like, ooh, Dave Brown. I'm like, what do you mean, like Dave Brown of the Flyers? He goes, how about Dave Brown of the Flyers that got traded to Edmonton last year? And I honestly, I had no idea. I could just feel like the blood, just like, I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Because now we're getting down, right? And the coach is going to pull the goalie. They're going to score an empty net goal to go up a goal. And guess who's going back on the ice? Because we always did for the last minute when that happens. Me. But now I know who I fought. Now I went and poked him again for a second time. And now he's going to fight me. And now I know who. But to fight a guy when you know who he is something different, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and like Rick Lee's like, come on. He's waving. In my mind, I'm like, no, stay there. It's a good team. One goal loss. Take one goal loss. And he comes. They don't get the empty net goal. The game ends or whatever. And Razor comes over. He goes, you really had no idea. I said, I didn't know he got traded. I said, I didn't know who I was. So that's how clueless I was, though.
Right.
But, yeah. But that was.
It is funny how naive you can be when you're young like that. And you haven't been there yet. You got to, you'll get help, but you won't, too. Yeah. You got to be able to kind of figure some shit out on your own.
And there's no internet. There's no, you don't know. Like, you go in, you play the game. There's nothing back then. There's no hype. There's a hype between teams, lots of that, but I had no clue. I'm like, holy cow! So the only funny, Brownie works for the Flyers, so I
love him.
Yeah, I see him in the press box. So it took me several years of sitting a few seats over, and I finally introduced myself. I said, "Can I tell you a story that I think is funny?" And he did laugh. He thought it was funny, but
he's a great guy.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Listen, I had a lot of goes with him.
Yeah.
And you talk about the warm up. I was doing it in Philly when I was with the Rangers, and I was patrolling the red, and we bumped, and all of a sudden both teams come together, and Bob Froese played with him and knows him, the goalie. Yeah. And Brownie comes over. What's the problem here? He got a high voice, right? And Bob Froese says, hey, Brownie, settle down. Who are you going to intimidate with that voice? And Proby gave it right. Oh, my God. Prosy gave it right to him. Oh, my God. So everybody kind of started laughing. I didn't know. I never heard him really, his voice. I just said, it was like, Ooga Booga, let's go. And, but I got to meet him at a fight night in Philadelphia. We had a thing called Fight Night in Philly, where you go down and they show your fights. Like when I fought him when he had no jersey.
Yeah.
Before the warm up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Before the game. Oh,
yeah.
Fuck. So
that's fun, right?
Yeah. You know what? I'm surprised I hung in there because I was grabbing his pants. I couldn't
Nothing to hold on to. Yeah.
I remember I always tell that story. We had been going for a while, and then we kind of rested because we were both tired, and we're just and he went down like this to my ear, and he goes, "Have you had enough?" And I went, "No," and I fucking threw another punch, and away we went again. But I had him on, and we talked, and it was just awesome to speak with him because, you go your separate ways. You never get to see these guys again, guys you fought, like you and me here today. It's just awesome. Brownie, you know what happened, right? He lost his wife, right? Which was terrible, the poor bastard. And, he's just a good man. One of the good guys in the game, no question. A lot of good guys in the game. 2 Stanley Cups. Now, I told you I missed that first one. I could have been part of that first one.
Yep.
I retired 92. I came back to Montreal.
Yep.
I wanted to play one more year. They won it the next year.
Yep. Yep.
So I missed those 2. If I never got that one in the middle, right, in 86, I'd have been kicking myself in the ass the rest of my life.
Oh,
You, my friend, you fucking hung in there.
Yep.
You hung in there, and you finally got that Stanley Cup. How cool was that for you?
Well, the amazing part, the first year I was with, they just won the Cup in 2000. The year I got there in 2001, lost at Colorado in 7. And another former Canadian, Turner Stevenson, was my teammate, and we lived close to each other, used to carpool. And we'd never been to the finals, either one of us. And I just remember after we lost, hanging out for a little while, you almost not feel sorry, but you just like, wow, what an opportunity we missed. We've never seen us this many years, 10 years in the league or more, just to get to the finals. Probably never going to get back. Never going to, it's just not going to happen. And then to get there 2 years later and win. I mean, it was incredible. Like, it's funny when you first get there. Like I said, they'd won, and so you ask, what's it like? And one of the biggest things said, well, it's kind of a relief because, that team you're playing against, they play as many games as you have all year long too. They're just not going home with anything. You know what I mean? And it's you're talking coming in training camp September all the way through the mid-June. That's a long haul to go home with second place. Nobody remembers second place, that kind of thing. But to win it was the most amazing thing, to take it back to Carlisle, back to your small town, and show it to your friends and the people you grew up with. Awesome. Yeah, do all those things was truly amazing. The one 2 years ago as a member of management is so different. I was going to ask you, because I had Lemire on last week. He's won 8 Stanley Cup, whatever, right? Yep.
And he said the most important one to him was and you were a scout, a little different, was the coach.
Well,
he said,
yeah.
That was the biggest.
He's the leader of the orchestra, right?
Yeah.
That's how Lou Lamoriello always described it. And from a scouting, it's like when you're playing, throw a hit, do whatever. You have so much impact on the game. Be positive on the bench, in the locker room, all the stuff you do. Your front line. The coach is right behind. The coach sets the tone. The coach decides who plays. The coach does all those things. So you have that impact from a scouting standpoint or management. I mean, we start July 1, how do we make our team better? You get to this time of year, November, December. Okay, what are we deficient? What are we missing? So in January and March, you start watching. Teams will call and say, okay, we're not going to make the playoffs. So here's the guys that are available if you're interested. And you try to make the moves you think help your team. But once the deadline passes, to be honest, you're just a fan, right? There's nothing, you can't rewind time. You can't get in the DeLorean there and go back in time and make a trade you wished you had. This guy got hurt. Oh, we should have added another player or something like that. You're just a fan. You cheer him on. So it's an incredible feeling again, as knowing, you know, you were a part of it to put the team together, that kind of thing. But you're a little more removed, and you're almost a fan, if that makes sense, a super fan.
Yeah.
But it's still amazing. Like regardless of what the game is or isn't, 4 rounds of best of 7 is still the hardest trophy to win. It really is. And the way I've always appreciated as a player, but even now as management, you have to figure out how each team is different to make them play your way. Like, right? So
Yeah.
Because you're not going to just, if you're not a speed team, you're not going to just go out there and play speed against the Oilers or whoever.
You got to take it away.
Yeah, you got to be able to play your game, and like you're saying, maybe that's why Jacques Lemaire appreciates it so much, because that's coaching too. To be able to stay on your guys positively and get them to buy in that no, our way works. It's our way that's going to win. Do not change the way we play. Make them adjust to us. Take away what they do and make them play our way. That's what a great coach does. You know, and the players are great for buying in and executing. But that's 4 rounds of that, because you're going to get 4 different teams, 4 different styles to play against.
90%, he would say. 90% for the coach is to get the team to play as a team.
And you'd be right.
90% of it. And it was so on the money. And, God, shock. So Pat Burns. I knew Pat Burns. I was really good friends with his uncle. I did a lot of promotional stuff with his uncle. And Pat was with the Canadians when I got traded. He was in the minors. And I was in Hartford, and Coach Jean Perron came in and started. We were in a slump. We weren't playing well. And he started giving it to everybody. And he came to me and said, Chris Nilan, when is the last time you had a fight? So basically he's telling me you go out and get in a fight. And this was, we were on a road trip, and I said to him in front of him, I said, what the fuck do you know about fighting? You know, you never had a fucking fight in your life. What do you fucking know about fighting? Yeah, it was like, he really didn't take it well, because I embarrassed him. And then we leave Hartford. We practiced there after the game. We lost the game, and we're going to Buffalo. I got to Buffalo, get up in the morning, pregame skate. I'm no longer with Carbonneau and Gainey. I'm going, oh, something's up here. Now, Big Serge and I were really close. Serge, we still are today. I was just with him the other night. I love him. And his best friend died the day before. His best friend. And I always contend that he was in no mood. I put him in a bad position. Because Serge was a really good manager. He could manage situations and manage people really well. He was really good at that. The papers could be screaming, get rid of this guy, fuck this guy, suspend him, do this, do that. And Serge would always keep his cool, sit back, let things die, and take care of what he had to take care of. But this thing, when the coach called him, I think he was at this point, and he was dealing with so much other shit that he said, you know what, fuck it, see you later. And he traded me. And I was devastated. Yeah. I told you, it almost broke me. I never wanted to play for another organization, and I was never quite the same, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I still stuck up for my teammates. I still did my job, but it was never the same. I had such a hard time with it. That being said, we look at the game today, and boy, a lot more teams, 32 teams. So come on, whether we like it or not, the talent level at times is watered down. You're talking about having to have 4 lines. A lot of teams don't have those 4 lines, and it shows on nights. No red line, which I get. I love, and I always bring this up. I talked to Lemaire about it. I listen to Bobby Orr talk about it. Bobby Orr famously quoted as saying, if the league really was worried about the players and their health, they would put the red line back in. And these kids are so talented today and so fast. It would be nice to see those 5 players pass their way up through all that defense and gain the offensive zone, which makes total sense to some pretty good hockey aficionados. But not the NHL, because they have to sell the game. They want it fast. They want it violent. Well, yeah, they want it violent. Not fighting violent. They want the hits. But a lot of that stuff today in the game that I see a lot at nights, it's just pond hockey.
Well, it's okay to put rules in and try them, but if they don't work, take them out. There's nothing wrong with that either. I agree with you. Like it's not easy to score goals, but the easiest way to score goals is off of turnovers. You put the red line back in, those defensemen move immediately back up. You don't have, like, I remember Chris Pronger was standing on the dot. Remember that years ago? I think he was playing against Tampa Bay. Guy Boucher was ahead of the curve. His teams wouldn't forecheck, so Chris stood on the dot with the puck in his own zone.
Philly.
And the whole crowd's booing, like, what are you doing?
Laviolette.
Exactly. But that's what you did. You took the red line out. Now the game's slower. It's not faster. It's slower. Like, imagine in our game, your defenseman is standing on a dot in his own zone and the other four guys are changing. You never would have done that.
Never.
No, because everyone has to back out. You put the red line in, the D move up. Now those three forwards move into the zone. Now they're forechecking. And trust me, you said there's 100, 150 guys that really aren't right. It's 32 teams. Great. There probably should be. I hope they get into bigger markets. I really do. I hope the game grows.
Yeah.
Take those guys that don't have the same ability as the top guys and make them do things under pressure they don't want to do. That's a turnover. That's a goal. And I don't know about you, but as a winger, the hardest thing to do was when your D threw that puck around the boards was to figure out if that defenseman was going to come crashing down and run you, or if worse, he was going to jump around you, pick the puck off the boards, go to the net, get a scoring chance, and end up you get your butt nailed to the bench because you just blew a chance. Well, that's a turnover. Like that. It's like I said, it's okay to try these things, but when they don't work and they haven't, put the red line back in. You will see more turnovers. You'll see so many more turnovers, and that's the chaos of hockey. When there's turnovers, you're going to beat these goalies. You're going to get, no matter how good they are, how much heavy, big equipment they're wearing, you're still going to get more chances. You're going to get more goals, I think. But, like I said, they've been, I don't know that they've ever taken rules out that they've put in, regardless. But that would be one for sure. I agree with you. That would be one for sure that I would do.
It's funny. Jacques said, I brought the trap word up to him, and he doesn't like it. But I said, everybody, Jacques Lemaire and the evil trap. And he says, that's what they call it. But I call it the smart way to play hockey.
Well, it's if you don't. I mean, that was the great thing about playing in Jersey. I played it. If you don't understand that it's actually not a defensive mechanism, it's an offensive mechanism.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out where to apply the pressure to make you turn the puck over. And it's usually right. And it's usually one of our defensemen. I know we had all these boring defensemen like Scott Niedermayer and Scott Stevens and guys that can play the game putting up 1,000 points. But that's what you would do. The trap had nothing to do with defense. If you go back and look, like I always say, you don't like it, go look 2000, 2001. Yeah, we were one of the best, if not the best team in the league in goals against and shots. We led the league or was close to it in goals for and shots for. Because off that trap, we created turnovers. Right. Once again, you create that turnover, your D joins the rush, and now you got a 3-on-2 or a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1.
Odd man rushes.
Odd man rush, and it's a scoring chance. And if you're not willing to play, like if you're not willing to battle it out, I tell you right now, it's more boring than watching a defenseman stand on his dot how many times in the game, only to try to fire the puck.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. And then fire the puck. Fire the puck to the far blue line, hope it gets tipped, so that they can set up and do the same thing back to you a couple of times. And if they miss, it's an icing. So, let's have 50 icings a game too. That's fun.
Yeah, that's incredible, right?
The trap is like that's. Every once in a while you hear the teams. Nobody knows what the trap is today. They don't understand. They don't know what it is.
They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue.
No.
And it's funny down low. I get it. It can be more difficult today to defend down low 3-on-3 because back in our day, I know the system we played was we had to read and react. Always had a D-man in front of the net.
Yep.
Puck goes the other corner, net front D goes. The other guy comes back to the front, center iceman or first man back. Got to work both sides.
Absolutely.
Fine. Yep. Today, and this is where I sometimes I'm a bit more give him a bit more leeway down there because now back in our day you could fucking tug on a guy, you could fucking punch him in the head half the time and get away with it and really make it difficult for them to even control the puck. You could do that shit. Now you have to lead with your stick and you better follow through with your body or you're done. But some of these guys just it's all stick. It's like, if they don't get it with the stick, then they got to pivot, and they don't follow through with the body. And a lot of times, there's so many scoring chances get created off a porous defensive play down low, and it's
a lot of these guys aren't strong enough to follow through with their body.
Yeah.
They're built for speed. Like so, if it's like it's a 7 o'clock game, I'm going to go scout. I'm there at 5:30. I usually walk through one of the two teams. I'll see them playing that kickball, whatever that thing is. They do well. Outside of maybe their legs and their butt, these guys are like they're skinny. They're like their upper bodies because they're
little
built,
boys.
but they're built for speed, right? The game is a speed thing. You can't be that big, heavy guy in front of the net anymore because nobody can work you over anyways. You don't have to be. So a lot of the time, exactly what you're saying, a lot of defensemen and guys defending, they're not strong enough to pin guys. They're not strong enough to push guys off of pucks or anything like that because they're not allowed to a lot of the time anyways. Somebody falls down, it's going to be a penalty. But they're built for speed now. But exactly what you said, a lot of teams actually play man-to-man. They don't even play what you're talking. What you're talking takes some coaching and it takes some practice. But once you get it, like I could do it. I did it for 3 years with Jersey, and it worked. And I'm not. Obviously, I'm just me, kind of. But I'd be the down low guy. Something you had to be comfortable. You had to be the down low, and it wasn't about hooking. It was you just had to keep that a certain way. When you could pin them, you had to pin them. But
you had to read and react. Is what you had to do. And
the other thing they do defensively, which I don't like, is just 5 guys collapse and they leave the other team on the outside. So you can have offensive zone pressure with the puck for 2 minutes and never get a scoring chance because there's 5 guys plus your guys, whoever's there, in the way, and the puck will never get to the net.
3 on 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Right down low.
Right, because the defensive team's not encouraged to come out and hit because if they hit too hard or they knock someone down, there's a chance it's going to be a penalty, and
it's a little soft the way they call it. They listen. I know they wanted to clean a lot of that up, and they did, but they overdo it with the stick fouls now. It's like you put a stick near a guy, you can't even. You touch his glove, you don't even hook it. You touch his glove, it's a penalty. So, I don't know.
They just need to allow for the battles in front, the battles along the board. I said, don't hook, don't hold, don't grab onto guys, don't slash them in the hands, But you know what? If I give you a light two-hander on the stick and your stick breaks, that's not my fault. That's a manufacturer's fault. That shouldn't be a penalty.
Yeah.
As long as they don't whack you on the hands or anything, we don't need guys getting hurt. That's for sure.
Couple things for you. You've been generous with your time. I appreciate it. So
not at all. Love it.
When you look, so we talk about the game. How about fighting in the game today?
Well, there should be. It should be. I don't know if say there should be more of it, but for me, and especially that year we went through it, and we're fortunate that we won the cup with Vegas. I just remember the finals with Florida, like the nonsense after the whistle, that stupid grabbing, headlocking guys, like I don't care how tough you think the game should, whatever. That's not tough. Like a bunch of guys grabbing each other's masks or headlocking or whatever. Yeah. I was glad when the league stepped in and just started giving 2s and 10s until they stopped doing it. Because it's nothing. If you want to fight. There's nothing wrong with that. And you know what? You're going to find out. Even if you win the fight, your hands hurt, your back hurts, your neck hurts, and you might have taken a punch. It's not nearly as much fun as you think. But like you said, if you fight a guy because you've been battling him in the corner, you're probably going to go back and battle him again. But at least you have the respect for him. It's going to be a little. You get it out of your system if that's the best way. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's obviously been taken out of junior a lot. So when you get guys that turn pro, maybe they were a skill guy in junior. Now they got to be a more physical guy. Well, if you play hard enough, you go in and finish checks and do things the right way enough times, you're going to make somebody angry, or if you're the defenseman that keeps getting, check finished on you, you're going to get angry. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. Have a fight. Who cares? Like it's always, I don't see the big deal in it. And I just, people talk about, it's good for the game, in the sense that you get the nonsense out of it. So you get back to playing hockey and playing it hard, and the last thing, like I tell our guys, anytime I talk to them, the last thing I need is a guy that comes in as a physical player, throws a hit, but he doesn't really know how to fight, and then he gets challenged. He doesn't know how to fight, so he doesn't fight, and then he stops hitting. I'm like, well, you're not effective anymore. Like you're not going to last. Yeah. You're just you're not to the NHL level of the skill guys that are out there. You got to find things that what can you do? It used to be finishing checks and playing hard. Now it's blocking shots. Right? It's part of playing hard. That's a big deal. Like I think I had 3 blocked shots my whole career, and maybe 1 was on purpose. Like it was I wanted nothing to do with
I
it.
was flamingo, same
Oh,
thing.
absolutely. I wanted nothing to do. Oh,
I'll
man.
fight anybody but block a shot.
Yeah. You
Craig
want,
Ludwig, go right ahead, Craig.
yeah. You want to punch me in the head? You go ahead. Do not shoot that off my foot. I do not like having my foot. It makes no sense, but that's exactly how I was. I'm like, do not shoot that puck when I'm out here.
It's funny, but in that era, and again, it's people. I don't know. I talked to so many people here that said, "God, when we used to go to games, you'd see maybe 7 goals in a game, by both teams. Like
Yep.
combined, 2 or 3 fights, some craziness, all that stuff, and it was exciting. You knew you were gonna. Now it's like, I went to Bell Center the other night to do a thing. And the first time in a long time, it was as electric as you could remember it. When they played Buffalo, they beat Buffalo 6-1. It was like one of the better games they played all year, actually, against a shitty team.
Yep.
And it was nice to see for the fan base.
Absolutely.
When we talk about the fighting, and I'd be remiss if I don't bring it up. And I had Bob Probert's wife on. I became friends with Proby in retirement and love the guy. And we see the number of enforcers over the years who've passed.
Yep.
And it actually kind of bugs me at times when they try and make that direct correlation between fighter and what's going on. Okay, I get it, and there's families there's dads
Yep.
who have lost their sons, and look at this as the one big thing, the fighting piece. Now, I went into the concussion program at Boston University, and I was kind of prodded by Danny Probert. She kind of said, why don't you look at doing it? And I did. I'm glad I did. I don't sit here every day and worry what's going to happen in my mind. My mom had dementia. She didn't know where she was when she died. It's in my family. I got punched in the head plenty of times. I had quite a few concussions. And I still, I don't worry about it. I mean, the 2 years I've done this, what they've told me is that for someone my age, I'm 66, soon to be 67 in February. I'm in a good place cognitively.
Right.
So there's no warning signs right now, which is a good thing. I'm glad. But it's not like I sit here and wait. If it happens, it happens. I don't worry about it. But when you look at that, does it ever, I mean, did it affect you when you see these guys dying? It must have. Hockey players, guys who did what we did. And do you ever worry about
it? I don't really worry about it. I certainly acknowledge, like, it is, like, I was, especially through the 90s, that, if you get a concussion or something, nobody really knew what it was. You didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And hey, I got my bell rung. You're usually on a 1-year contract. So if you can keep anyone from knowing anything happened, including the trainers, you did it. You didn't tell anybody.
Yep.
So you didn't want them to, you got to sit out, or, you know what, we'll just sit you out and call up the guy from the minors, and there goes your job, kind of thing. So there was that. Plus, you didn't really know what it was, like that, to be honest. A couple of guys I know, I won't say who they are, but at least one guy told me, said he signed up for something similar. He hadn't gone in for it, but what kind of bothered him is they didn't ask him about his history. Like, have you been in car accidents? Did you play football in high school? Did you have concussions? You can't simply just go ahead and blame it on playing hockey when there are other things. They can all add up. Like you said, you have a family history of dementia. Like, they should know that.
Yeah.
It should all be a part of what we're doing. I think the more we know about each other, like, I try to get a physical every year. I try to stay on top of that stuff as best I can. I'm not going to, hide my huge head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist or anything like that. And certainly watch for any kind of change, or, if anyone sees a change in me, anyone around me would tell me in a second. But no, I feel bad for the families, because it's, in some cases I can sit there and look at, how the player passed or their former player or what happened. You go, that's got nothing to do with concussions. Like, it's not. You can,
whether it's drugs or suicide, one or the other.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't look at, they look at the one thing because they want that to be the obvious thing.
Absolutely.
And they don't know the history, and whether the history is car accident, childhood trauma,
Yeah.
which is a huge one,
Yes.
and has an impact on lives later in life. I look at my own situation, my problems with addiction and alcoholism, and it wasn't just because I was a fighter in hockey. Believe me, today I know where it came from,
Right.
and I'm okay with it. I've accepted it, and I've finally got my life in order. But I went through a fucking horrendous time, and I'll tell you, it was more to do with leaving the game and being lost
Yeah.
than it had to do with, well, I had a bunch of fights and I got a lot of penalty minutes.
Right.
You know, it had a lot more to do with being lost, and I got lost. So, yeah. Well, hopefully, you stay healthy and you keep picking good players for Vegas, and
Best.
and they work that fucking salary cap and that all that good stuff they do to.
Oh, man.
Listen,
Beautiful.
it's within the fucking CBA, right? It's within the rules of it. You can do it. And why not?
Yes, I will say, but it is funny to, and I get it because we've had the success we've had in a short window, and especially with the Canadian teams having, being from out west. I get the hate because it's, you know what, when you're a fan and you're a long suffering fan, and then you watch this team come along and do this, and you can sit there and say, well, you know what, they shouldn't have been able to pick that team. Well, the owner spent $500 million. He gets to pick a different team than the previous, guys that spent $70 million. Like, you're going to get something for your money. But I get it from the fan base standpoint. You're sitting there for how many years where maybe your team's never won a cup, or it's just been a long, long time. So I totally get it, but it is, we share stuff every once in a while where it's like, something will come flying out and, somebody will put together a great little, one of those video things they do on the internet and stuff, and we'll share it and have a good laugh or whatever. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Listen, I live in old Canada now, right? In Montreal. And when you look at the health of the game financially, if you don't have all those markets in the U.S., and Vegas is a fucking huge market for them.
Absolutely. It is the money.
And where do all these kids make this money from?
Yep.
From that fucking market down there. No offense to O Canada, but if it was just an O Canada league, there's not much fucking money in it.
No.
And Bettman, everybody says what they says about it, and I disagreed with a lot of shit he's done. One thing he's done, he's brought the money into the game. He's made the owners money, and he's made the fucking players a ton of money. More than we ever thought we could imagine, right?
Well, and I'll tell you what, the NBA and NFL and Major League Baseball should write Bettman a check for allowing our owner to go into Vegas, because now they all want to be there because it is such a market with a great fan base and everything else. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. Our owner decided, no, it can work there, and I'll make it work, and I'll put all the money up for it. And he did.
Yeah, he's awesome, that guy. I like him.
Yeah, so you already have the Raiders there. There's talk the A's are going to move there in baseball. They want an NBA franchise at some time or another. But like we said earlier, you know what? Like you said, there's lots of nights you watch. There's guys playing that aren't really NHL players. There's no other way to say it. But at the same time, you want to grow the game, I'd still expand the league. If you got owners that will spend, an owner in Houston or wherever they're saying, go back to Atlanta or wherever, I have no idea. But they're saying whatever it is, you've got an owner like the last was Seattle, $650 million. If the next guy's $750 or $1 billion, I don't know. But the way it's working, and they're making money. You're going to need another 20 players in the NHL, another 20 years or players in the American Hockey League, which is just more jobs for the players, which is great. But it will grow the game. Like I said, it's in Vegas they've done a great job. Our owner keeps building arenas. He keeps you buying old ones and turning them into new ones. And the growth of the game, boys and girls alike, is huge for the sport. They've done a great job. Nashville, where I live, has done a great job as well. So it's a big deal in the South. Because like you said, you grew up in Boston where you could have played a lot of different sports. And that's the way it is in most parts of the U.S., especially the South, where hockey's way down the list. It's football, basketball, track, and soccer. Way down is hockey. But you get the kids to a game, they love it, they want to do it. Okay, now we got to find a youth rink. Let's get them in there. And once you get the kids in there for a few years, it's a fun game. It's still a fun game.
Do we ever see NHL Europe?
That I don't know how you do, only because of the travel. Like, how do you know what I mean? Like you would have to maybe, I don't know, you'd have to do 4 teams at a time or more to have a division.
Yeah.
And then you could send, if the, whatever team from North America went over, they could play all those teams over a 2-week and come.
You have to figure it'd be a bitch doing the schedule for sure. But
absolutely. And it's schedule is what it is now. You probably don't need to do that, but I mean, it's obviously a growing sport. I think it sounds like all these games that they're doing in different parts of Europe. They were in Australia last year with LA and Arizona. It sounds like they went over pretty well, but it's like I said, once the kids have gone and watched, okay, I want to play. Well, we don't have a rink. All right, well, back to whatever they do in Australia, hunt kangaroos. I don't know, but Europe's soccer and tennis and other stuff, right?
It's crazy. Yeah. Listen, Big Jim McKenzie, it's I'm telling you, I'm so glad I got to do this with you. A lot of respect for you.
Man, I've been loved you since I was 10, 12 years old. I told you, I've been watching you my whole life.
Well, I appreciate
that. Appreciate this. Huge admire you. You're one of the toughest guys to play this game. Like I said, you have a coach come to you, a great coach, say, yeah, you need to fight a little less. You might be the only guy in NHL history that's ever had a coach come to you and say that. That's
and it was that guy, my favorite.
Guy. Yeah, exactly. It was that guy. That's
all. Again, a lot of respect for you. You're a good man. I'm glad you took the time, and one of these days I'm going to look you in the eye and shake your hand.
I look forward to it.
And say nice to me, and not what the fuck are you looking at?
All right. Get well soon.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Raw Knuckles with Chris Nilan on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.